The US Copyright Office has released updates clarifying its stance on AI content and what defines authorship. There are plenty of videos on how to register AI-generated work. I'm going to focus on how these announcements impact writers who don't use it. Has the value of copyright protection increased? Could it be a way to fight against a flood of AI content? Or does the current dynamic favor large corporations and slop? So far, the US Copyright Office has released 3 reports. The first of which concerned digital replicas. Think deepfakes, musicians performing songs they had nothing to do with, things of that nature. Most of that won't apply to this discussion, but I found this part of the foreword pretty interesting. In what ways can the technology serve as a valuable tool to amplify human creativity and ultimately promote science and the arts? How do we respect and reward human creators without impeding technological progress? I think that's a great way to frame AI use and what its role should be in creative fields. It shouldn't replace human authors. It should be used to bring the best out of them. We're going to jump right into the second part. These reports are pretty long. This one is 52 pages, but a lot of it is citations. Page 3 in Roman numerals has a great summary of the whole report. The Copyright Office has concluded that new law doesn't need to be drafted. The existing ones are sufficient to encompass AI. Using AI in the capacity to assist doesn't affect copyright eligibility. The human parts of a work are protected, even if AI-generated portions are not. Purely AI-generated content cannot be registered. Determining where to draw a line is on a case-to-case basis. I'm not a big fan of that one. Prompts are not copyrightable. The totality of a work can be protected if a human author rearranged or curated AI-generated content and included it as part of their work. That one's a little confusing, and I'll elaborate later, but basically, if you write a comic book and then use AI to generate the artwork, the individual images aren't copyrightable, but the collection and order of them is. And finally, this one kind of reiterates the first point. They're not going to make special accommodations or change the law. But they also admit that times are changing, and they may revisit this. One thing that stood out to me in Part 2, Section B, is that disclosure of AI use is mandatory. De minimis means negligible. So say you used AI to generate the name of a character in your book. I don't think you'd be obligated to say anything. But if all the names were generated by AI, you probably should. What I don't like about this is that it relies on the honor system. Royal Road has disclosure as part of their AI policy, and I don't think that's working out so well. Page 7 justifies why prompts are not protected. Because you can get unpredictable results even with an identical prompt, there's not enough human control in that process. Even when setting a seed value with Midjourney, there's still not a guarantee of consistency. And twice on this page, they emphasize that a copyright requires a human author. The office is all for AI as an assistive tool, but they remain undecided when AI systems are making expressive choices. For me personally, how these systems were trained is an important part of the ethics of their use. I would have loved to see a bit more consideration in that respect from the Copyright Office. In Section D concerning prompts, they get into the weeds. This passage defends excluding prompts because in essence, that'd be granting people protection of ideas. They use the analogy of if you conceive of an idea and then go to a place that specializes of art in that style, finding something that matches your description doesn't make you an author. The office's conclusion is that prompts are unprotected ideas, but they also don't rule out that that interpretation could change. They address the exclusion of highly detailed or revised prompts by reminding people that time, expense, or effort does not determine authorship. Expressive inputs is a fascinating topic. That's when you're asking AI to incorporate work you're providing into its output. In a writing context, that could be uploading a story and asking the AI to change the perspective. And the office agrees that this is different than a prompt. For me, what matters in this equation is, was that input yours? The report provides an example of a hand-drawn image turned into an AI-generated one. The office ruled that the drawing is copyrightable. For the AI-generated image, only what was obvious from the input was copyrightable. Any flourish or decision AI made is not protected. This is the part that fascinates me. If the AI-generated output isn't applicable, I'm eager to see a lawsuit between two people using AI-generated content and seeing which of these specific parameters are protected. When it comes to modifying or arranging AI-generated content, the collection of your output is protected. So no one could release an identical work, but they could take the individual parts of it and mix that with other AI-generated content and protect that work. This is that situation I mentioned earlier, where a comic book was human-authored, but the images were AI-generated. The compilation as a whole is protected. Because there are creative choices in respect to selection, placement, and arrangement of the images, that justifies protection of the overall work, but not the individual images. Page 36 expands upon the office's view that additional protections don't need to be drafted to protect AI-generated use. And the office, like me, is concerned that a flood of AI-generated content could impact the earning potential of other creators. This last part is why I think platforms like Railroad need to more proactively discourage AI use. That said, we're both in agreement that using AI tools to empower creators, like those with disabilities, is a wonderful thing. And they provide the example of Randy Travis, who lost speech function following a stroke. AI was used to recreate his voice. Because the sound recording used AI as a tool, not to generate expression, the office registered the work. In the conclusion of part 2, the office makes a bold claim. They say that since they've adapted to a lot of new technology, they're capable of determining what warrants protection on a case-by-case basis. Given that roughly 450 people work at the Copyright Office, I think that's a bit unrealistic. It seems like a flood of applicants could easily overwhelm them, in the same way that authors are competing against AI-generated content on platforms like Railroad or Kindle Unlimited. And finally, because the landscape is ever-changing, they're going to continue to reevaluate their approach. Now we're on to part 3 concerning generative AI. You still with me? This was the longest report by far, so I'm going to cherry pick some parts I found interesting. The Copyright Act grants copyright owners a set of exclusive rights to reproduce, distribute, publicly perform, and publicly display their works, as well as the right to prepare derivative works. Establishing a prima facie case of infringement, that means on its face, requires 2 elements. 1, ownership of a valid copyright, and 2, copying of constituent elements of the work that are original. Creating and deploying a generative AI system using copyright-protected material involves multiple acts that, absence a license or other defense, may infringe one or more rights. That's certainly how I feel, and we're starting to see court cases rule on this matter. Here the office details how, when datasets use copyrighted works, they're clearly making copies of them. They download them, transfer them, convert them, and create modified versions. This is a ruling that's been upheld in court. The training process might also include copying in the form of model weights. However, court rulings have been inconsistent. In Kadri vs. Meta Platforms, that claim was deemed nonsensical, but in Anderson vs. Stability AI, it was upheld. What the office cares about is substantial similarity. When full or partial copies remain in the model, that's when they take exception. Fair use is a common defense AI companies like to rely upon. Both Anthropic and Meta have had success with that strategy. In respect to determining fair use, there are 4 non-exclusive factors. 1, the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for non-profit educational purposes. 2, the nature of the copyrighted work. 3, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. And 4, the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. So where does the office stand on datasets? Frustratingly, to me at least, they view it as a transformative process, claiming that it's hard to compare the influence of individual works within the dataset. I find that justification flimsy at best. If I steal from a number of investment accounts, I'm not transforming it into a new portfolio, I'm still taking their money. However, they do admit that there are degrees to how justified this is. For example, using books and papers to train a system for content moderation does not have the same educational value as those sources. But at least they take this stance. When you use protected works to train a model that generates similar output, that's not transformative, unless it's for comment or parody, like on YouTube. As always, these situations aren't cut and dry. In respect to scraping, they take a pretty soft stance. The knowing use of a dataset that consists of pirated or illegally accessed works should weigh against fair use without being determinative. Why not? How is that not determinative? To sum it up, in respect to training, the office cares about whether it's for a transformative purpose, and if the public would have access to the copies the AI developers made. Again, I think that's way too lenient. When it comes to impact on the potential market or value of a copyrighted work, that takes into account the original work and any derivatives. On page 66, they finally acknowledge some things that concern me. Because AI systems can be prompted to imitate a writer's style, applying fair use would force writers to compete with AI-generated scripts trained on their work without their authorization and without fair compensation. This threat is more acute because of the technology's ability to produce works so similar in style that the average person cannot discern a difference in the marketplace, creating direct competition with the creators whose works have been used to train the model. More of this, please. I think that's a very reasonable concern. And on page 77, they oblige my request, acknowledging that lost sales are inevitable when a model can produce substantially similar outputs. Unfortunately, what the office suggests we do about that is a bit annoying. This is an issue for the courts. In conjunction with the office claiming that they'll evaluate things on a case-by-case basis, I think flooding the courts with lawsuits is a waste of everyone's time and favors certain entities. Corporations. I really wish they concluded this report with a more definitive stance. Here they're like, training's probably transformative, but whether that's fair use? Hard to say. It might also affect the market. If I ended my 100-plus page term paper with that, I don't think I'd be getting a good grade. In respect to practical solutions, we're on the same page when it comes to licensing agreements. Where we differ is that they believe that this should be voluntary. In my mind, there's already been a gross infringement upon protected rights. And I mean really gross, like porta potty at a music festival gross. I don't think it's unreasonable to mandate licensing. Whew, that was a lot. I hope I presented it in a digestible way. So what did we learn? I think the emphasis on human authorship was reassuring, but the process of ensuring that's the case when people register copyrights is going to be a mess. I hope the office's confidence is warranted, but I just see this as too big a task. Currently, there don't seem to be reliable tools to detect AI, so I just don't see how they could sort through everything. And because of that, I think a lot of slop is going to get through. In addition, wealthy individuals or large corporations are going to be able to leverage the chaos of this situation to their benefit. They have the resources for court cases and the legal teams necessary to navigate these murky waters. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. I think the value of a copyright is going to increase. So is the price of registration, but I'll get into that next video. Being able to prove that your work is human created and licensable might end up fostering opportunity. Quibble is one platform that's well poised to take advantage of that. Next video, we're going to use what we learned about copyrights for real-world application. But before we go, I want to provide a quick update on my fiction. Growth is through the roof. After a period of unprecedented decline, I'm shooting to the sky. I want to thank everyone who's supporting the series. I also want to shout out The Four Body Problem by Opaque Dragon and War Height by Probably Sam. Tambi and I are going to clear our heads of all that legalese and take some time to relax.